Hey everybody, how's it going? I am coming at you with a brand new deck profile for BT-7, my purple-yellow Cherubimon list. This deck is extremely strong and I've had a ton of success with it. I've had a chance to make a lot of changes to it and, tailor this deck to how I like to play it. So without further ado, let's jump in. For the Digi-Eggs, I'm playing 4 Upamon. Upamon is one of the main engines for this deck, alongside the purple cards, as it's usually only going to be used to swing when you have a Salamon over it, and so you're usually always going to have that 3 security when you're swinging with it to draw that card. Drawing cards is actually super important to this deck because you want to make sure that you find all of your pieces, and the Upamon just helps you do that. Pretty self-explanatory. Moving on to our rookies, we are playing 4 Salamon. Salamon is very, very important to this deck, I think. I think a lot of people are only playing, 2 Salamon potentially. I think the 4 Salamon is extremely necessary because the recovery really helps you stay in games, and making sure that you always have this card in hand to digivolve when you're raising, to not only draw cards, but to ensure that you're not falling too far behind on security, is really important. And in combination with the Upamon, gives you a lot of additional draw power that you generally don't always have when you're running the yellow-purple hybrid decks. For the rookies, I'm running 4 Bushiagumon. Bushiagumon is a phenomenal card in this deck. Being able to be played for free off of Cherubimon's effect is absolutely fantastic. And I've won a lot of games by just spawning 4 Bushis at once and swinging for 4 checks out of nowhere. And then obviously you have some hybrids to finish the game. So Bushiagumon's super great, super self-explanatory. There are situations when you have enough memory where you can just drop them from your hand as well and swing with Rush, because you don't care if it dies or not. Next up, I'm running 2 Bokomon. Bokomon's really, really good because he lets you search for more pieces, and having that memory bonus when you're digivolving on top of your Tamers is super phenomenal. And yet Purple has a lot of ways to get rid of those Digimon that stop the memory gains. So he's really helpful. And the fact that you can play him off of Cherubimon's effect to get the search. There's been a couple games that I've won where I've played Bokomon off the Cherubimon effect, multiple of them, and then I've been able to search for pieces, grab a couple hybrids, and then digivolve multiple times to win the game because of my Bokomons. Last up for my rookies, I'm running 2 Lucemon. I think 2 Lucemon's probably the right amount. I've seen a lot of lists running 1, sometimes some of them running 3. I personally am not playing any Lucemon Chaos Mode or any Dead or Alives in this deck, so I think that 2 Lucemon's good. You can play them off of your Cherubimon effect to get that free recovery. You generally have enough cards in your trash to hard play them, and you also have the ability to trash him really easily from your hand with things like Koichi. Honestly, super great card. Love running it. 2 is probably the right amount. Moving on to our hybrid package, we are running 4 Kaiserleomon. Kaiserleomon's a fantastic card because it's one of our sources of removal, as well as one of our hybrid cards. The retaliation effect on this card is actually fantastic because you can use it to go into Rihihimon, and then Rihihimon lets you pop things and then get your Tamer back. Kaiserleomon also has the advantage of being 6k DP, which is really nice because you can trade with other 6k DP Digimon as well as being able to swing in with just him into big Digimon to get retaliation pops and destroy their Digimon is really nice. I'm also running 4 Loimons. I think the full hybrid package is absolutely necessary in this deck because of how many ways you have to play Tamers from the trash, as well as gain memory back with your Bokomons from your Cherubimon effect. Loimon's pretty self-explanatory. He's your vanilla hybrid Digimon that you go over your Tamers with. So yeah, 4 Loimon, 4 Kaiserleomon, absolutely necessary in this deck. I'm playing 4 Rihihimon. Rihihimon is also extremely important in this deck. 4 of them is necessary to not only have that 1-cost Spirit Digivolution, but also to have that Annihilation effect of playing Tamers from your trash if you need to. Also having that Retaliation effect, it's really nice to have 3 memory. You go on Kaiserleomon, you go on Rihihimon, you swing, you pop the Digimon, you bring back one of your Tamers, and it's still your turn. Really, really nice effect, and definitely useful. You can use Analog Voice effect off this. You can use the 4-cost mat off of this as well, which is really nice. And then last up for the ultimates, I'm playing 3 Rebellionmons. I'm playing 3 Rebellionmons just because of the meta that I've been playing mostly. There's a lot of argument to play just 2 of these and then add like another Tamer in, or play like a Cutemon or something like that, or another Bokomon. But Rebellionmon is super impactful in certain matchups. He's really good against Red Hybrid because he can stop a lot of their OTK potential. He's also really strong against the Yellow matchup because he, again, can stall off. They don't want to be swinging with their Digimon into a Rebellionmon, and having that retaliation can definitely stall additional turns. He's not super great into Blue Hybrid because he can just be stunned and they can swing anyways. But he's really great against the Christmas Hybrid as well for Green because they can't swing. And again, X Antibody, being able to stall X Antibody for a turn with Rebellionmon is super great because he wants to die anyways, usually get the memory back from Koichi to pass turn, and X Antibody, if they lose their big stack, they can't really do much, so he definitely poses a huge threat to X Antibody. Moving on to our Megas, we are running only 3 Cherubimons. I don't think 4 is absolutely necessary in this deck, and the reason why I don't think 4 is absolutely necessary is because you generally have enough search to find these cards, and you can bring back cards from the trash pretty frequently. Most games, you only ever need 1 Cherubimon out to win the game, so you don't ever need to see this multiple times in your hand. So that's why I only run 3 of them. I have not had a single game that I've played yet where I've needed to Digivolve into 2 Cherubimons to win the game. I've only ever had to use 1 because once he's on the board, he's a huge deterrent. He can swing into security with 0 threat because if he dies, he's spawning a bunch of guys. Your opponent really doesn't want to kill him, so he just kind of sits out there. And while he's sitting out there, he gets a ton of pressure on the board till eventually your opponent has to deal with him. So I love Cherubimon, but only needs 3. Our last Mega, we're running Ancient Sphinxmon. The reason why I've teched this card into the deck is because it fits really well with a lot of the cards in the deck, as well as it is a extremely important piece in certain matchups. I've noticed that when you're playing against things like X Antibody and they have cards like Dorugoromon with Reboot, there's not a lot of ways that purple can remove them without playing things like Trump Card, because Retaliation doesn't work on the unsuspended Digimon. So Ancient Sphinxmon is your out to those big Digimon. You can pop those cards like Dorugoromon, you can pop the Emperor Greymons, you can pop cards that normally you wouldn't be able to get over or to deal with using its effect. So I really like Ancient Sphinxmon. I play as a 1-of, again, usually you see it when you need to, because you have so much dig in this deck, and you have so many ways to recover cards back to your hand. Moving on to the Tamers, I am running 2 Analog Boy, or 2 Analog Youth. Analog Youth is fantastic because he's a 2-drop Tamer, he counts towards the Cherubimon Tamer amounts, and he lets you cycle through your deck even more. Purple does not care about cards in the trash. Every card that you reveal with this, you're okay with going in the trash, maybe minus a Salamon, but usually you can take that. You can play his effects using, when cards die, when your Rikikimon dies, you can tap them to hatch eggs, to gain memory as well. And so there's a lot of different interactions that you can use with Analog Youth to make a lot of valuable plays with him. And I love running him. I'm running him at 2 copies. For the other Tamers, I'm running 2 Madashitas. Again, you don't need to see this card a ton because I always see it every game. There are so many ways to get Tamers out from your trash for free. I can recycle this card a lot. There is merit to removing a Rebellionmon and running another Mad, I think, in this deck. However, I've had a lot of success with only 2. There are lots of other ways to gain memory with this deck, and it's really hard to choke it because with Bokomons and with the other memory gain sources that you have in this deck, definitely love running it. 2 Mats, all I think, maybe 3 would be good, but you don't want to clunk up the deck too much. Moving on next, I'm running 3 Purple Karis. This card is fantastic. I think of it almost as like a pseudo Ice Wall. If anything, I might want to run a 4th one instead of a 3rd purple mat. And the reason why I want to run these Karis is because if your opponent swings to security and you have 3 Karis out, that's their turn essentially over. Even if they have a Memory Tamer, they can't do anything else. So I like to think of it as a permanent ice wall on the board where they just cannot swing at security if you have any. And so if you have those Salamons out on the board, you can always recover one and then use these Karis to your advantage to stall out the game longer until you can get your combo off, which is super duper impactful, and there is the reason why I'm running these Karis. Lastly, I'm going to run 4 Koichis. This card is phenomenal. You can use him for a lot of different purposes. Mainly, you want to use him to have your Digimon Digivolve on top of him because the on deletion effect is fantastic to gain 1 memory. Also, drawing 1 and trashing 1 card. He is basically a Labramon is the way I like to look at it. That has a sweet inheritable. So Koichi is fantastic. And you know, you can play him pretty easily and pretty readily available from your hand and from your trash using your multiple different effects. Moving on to my option cards. I'm running a pretty different slew of option cards to what I've seen most people run. Of course, I'm running the 4 Schwartz Lorzats. This card is phenomenal for every hybrid and tamer you have in play. Delete one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. This card's absolutely broken. Against some matchups, it's not going to be super impactful. In the mirror matchup, it's really great because if they spawn a bunch of guys and they hit one of these in security, they're just all dead. It's also super great when you're running it against decks that actually want to flood the board, like any kind of rookie rush deck. Other than that, it's not super great against the other hybrid decks, but deleting 1 Digimon is usually pretty good. If you can get 2 with it, it's fantastic. Great card. There's an argument to maybe run 3 of them and then run something else, like another Tamer or something like that. I like 4 of them. The consistency is important to me. And then for our 1-cost option cards, I'm running 2 Calling from the Darkness and 2 Deathclaws. The reason why I'm running 2 Calling from the Darkness is because one interaction that most people forget about with this card is you don't actually have to have a Digimon on board to return 2 Digimon to your hand. So you can play this card for 1 just to return 2 Digimon from your trash to your hand. You can also use it to pop your own Cherubimon to spawn a bunch of dudes. So you can swing security with your Cherubimon, then Calling from the Darkness it, and then bring back 2 guys from your hand, usually your hybrids, so that you have the tools to go for game. The 2 Deathclaws are also for the same reason. You can use them to pop your own Cherubimons, or your own Rikimons, and you can also use them to pop level 4 lower Digimons. I find it great against matchups that run a lot of level 4s, so blue hybrid wants to run a lot of level 4s like Korikakumon and the Kumamons, so Deathclaw and Calling from the Darkness are fantastic 1-cost cards. When it comes to matchups, I've played against a super broad grouping of matchups. The hardest matchup that I think this deck has is blue hybrid. They do have a ton of ability to swing super wide, super fast. However, if they get a Hex Blaumon out, that's where the only real trouble this deck has with it is. If they don't get a Hex Blaumon out before you're able to get your Cherubimon out there, they actually cannot deal with the Bushi Rush from all of your cards coming out from the trash at once, because blue hybrid struggles with getting OTK'd. So if you're able to chip early with like a Salamon or 2, and then you can bring out an OTK on them, they do highly struggle with that. So it's really important that you can stall blue out long enough. If you can stall blue out long enough, then you have a pretty easy matchup against them. Against the OTK decks, again, your best friends are going to be those purple Karis and your Salamons and those Lucimons recovering you to stall out their game. Once they run out of steam from their OTK, then they're going to have a really tough time beating you once you flood the board. X-Antibody is an interesting matchup. It's really hard if they high roll. However, if you can, weather the storm and stop them from OTKing you, again, once you delete their big stack, they're not super duper scary anymore. So that's been my tips. Christmas Hybrid, again, for green is pretty fantastic deck to play against, but they don't really want to swing over your guys that have retaliation. So that stops a lot of their, aggressive potential. And if they keep losing Digimon to retaliation effects, it slows down their game plan a lot. They can't really suspend any of your Digimon. You're not really playing a Digimon that they can suspend, other than maybe your Cherubimons. That's the only Digimon that actually really ever sits out on the board. So, personally, I think the hardest matchup is going to be your blue hybrid, and then your easiest matchup, I think, is the yellow hybrid, because they don't have enough OTK potential to just beat you, and you can stall out just as long as them, and you have just as much recovery as them with the Lucimons and the Salamons. Yeah, they have Jet Sylphies and they have the Seraphimons, but you just have just as much and you have more aggression than they do, so you can actually really hit them pretty hard, pretty fast. Anyways, that's been my deck list for BT-7 Cherubimon. If you have any more suggestions going forward, let me know. I will be streaming Digifest on Sunday, March 27th, so feel free to tune into that, and until next time.